As you guys are probably well aware, I am a big fan of Arcade1Up machines. It's a great way to play some of the arcade games that you played as a kid, and there's a ton of nostalgia tied to them. They're pretty easy to assemble as well, and I have ended up buying 6 of these. Yes, 6 of these. So I've quickly ran out of room in my game room. But all of these systems had some nostalgic value towards me. I remember playing them at various places like fast food restaurants, hotels, all sorts of things. Well, all systems except one, the Final Fight Arcade1Up cabinet. Now, when I reviewed the Final Fight Arcade1Up cabinet, I said it had the best game variety that we've seen so far from Arcade1Up, and I still think that holds up to today. You have 2 platformer games on here, you have a beat 'em up game, and you have a shoot 'em up game. So it's a really great variety, whereas most of these systems have very similar games on them. But the problem was, I didn't have any nostalgia towards these games. I never played them as a kid, I never saw them in the arcade, I didn't have a Super Nintendo, so most of these games, while fun to play, didn't really hold any sort of sentimental value to me. However, one game did have some sentimental value to me, a game that Arcade1Up will probably never be able to do, and that is WWF Wrestlefest. I came up with the idea to sort of transform my Final Fight into a WWF Wrestlefest Arcade1Up cabinet, and now the final product is finally finished. So I basically want to tell you guys what Wrestlefest is, why I decided to choose this game, go through the process of it, and then show you guys the finished product of it, because I'm definitely very excited about how this came out. So sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about my WWF Wrestlefest Arcade1Up cabinet. So in case you are unfamiliar with what WWF Wrestlefest is, this was the second WWF arcade game to be released, following WWF Superstars. Now, WWF Superstars was a pretty cool game. It did have a bit of a limited roster. It didn't really have all character-specific moves or anything like that, but it definitely featured some very nice graphics that you wouldn't see on the NES. When WWF Wrestlefest came out, though, they definitely upped the ante with this game. You had a larger roster of characters, you had different sorts of arenas that you could fight in, you had different match types, you even had a blue steel cage, and most importantly, characters had individual moves. So Hulk Hogan had his running leg drop, you could do the boss man slam as well, and it really upped the ante. Now, unfortunately, WWF Wrestlefest never came to home consoles because I guess it was just too advanced. When you look at the graphics that were available on this game that released in 1991, I don't think the current systems that were on the market could really replicate that in an authentic way. Plus, you had the fact that WWF games were already coming out for these home consoles, so Wrestlefest was never in the cards. Now, I remember playing Wrestlefest for the first time at a place called Milford Amusement Center when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I went there with my dad. It was basically an arcade with go-karts and batting cages and stuff like that, sort of the high time of the arcade industry, and I had an absolute blast playing this game. Now, Final Fight is of course a 2-button configuration, so I thought to myself, well, Wrestlefest is a 2-button configuration as well, so this would make for a perfect Arcade1Up mod. Of course, Wrestlefest will probably never be released by Arcade1Up. There's a lot of things tied into it, such as the character roster in the game. A lot of these characters are deceased, they're not part of the WWE Legends program, and one character, Jake the Snake Roberts, is actually in a rival company, AEW, right now. So we're probably never going to get the Arcade1Up Wrestlefest cabinet, so I figured, you know what, we just need to make one. Now, when it comes to making an Arcade1Up cabinet, I obviously am a bit of an idiot. I'm not very good at technical things like that, so I brought in 2 of my buddies to help me out, Rax the Great and Russ Lyman, both of which have YouTube channels. I'll have them in the description box down below, so make sure you guys go check them out. Rax actually converted an Arcade1Up cabinet before and put a Raspberry Pi in it, so I knew that he would know how to do some of the technical stuff with it. And Russ is very artsy-fartsy, so I figured he would be good to do the graphics on the Arcade1Up cabinet because I wanted it to look as good as possible. Now, as far as actually converting your Arcade1Up cabinet into something else, I definitely recommend checking out ETA Prime's video about how to put a Raspberry Pi into an Arcade1Up cabinet. It's actually very easy. He has a bunch of links that you can follow as well for the different things that you'll need, and he pretty much walks you through the process. It was definitely a very huge help. Now, aside from putting the Raspberry Pi into the Arcade1Up, we also switched out the buttons on it, and we put in an external sound system because it would just sound better with this. I went with some light up buttons for this because I just thought it looked pretty cool, and I'm definitely very pleased with the way it came out. Now, on the graphics side of things, Russ was basically working on putting the graphics on the Arcade1Up machine. I went to a website called arcadegraphics.com. I'll have a link to them in the description box down below to get the custom WWF Wrestlefest arcade graphics. I think they did a really good job with the graphics. It looks very nice. They make it so that it's a little bit larger than the actual system is, so you have to cut it, but it makes for a cleaner look in my opinion. Now, the Arcade1Up modding community is actually pretty big, and there are different things you could do, such as drill in more buttons or even buy different control panels to additionally add more buttons to your system. But I just wanted to keep this simple. I sort of feel like when you have too many games on a device, you sort of get a sensory overload. You don't really know what to play. So I limited my selections on this Arcade1Up to just 2-button games. Now, shockingly, there's not really a master list of 2-button games that came out in the arcades, so I pretty much just had to look at games from like the late 80s to the mid 90s to see what games were 2-button games and what games I wanted to add to my system. All right, so we've talked about this thing a ton. Now let's look at this thing in action to see how good it actually came out, because honestly, I'm very, very happy with it. All right, so here we are at the main menu of the Retropie system. I haven't put a splash screen on there. You could do like a custom splash screen so it looks all fancy. But here are the games that I have put on this for now. Bunch of 2-button games, some fun stuff. Some of the ROMs I do have to switch out. I think Superman doesn't work, but you know, that's kind of what comes with MAME. But of course, the star of the attraction, hi, you could see me. The star of the attraction is, of course, Wrestlefest. I mean, it's one of the greatest arcade games ever. So it boots up beautifully, as you can see, and it has all of that goodness. Now here's where things get a little bit tricky. Because this is a 2-button configuration, now you can customize this pretty much any way you want. However, it's a little bit tough because I only have the 2 buttons and then start. So in order to insert coins, I actually have to go around to the back of the system and press a button to insert coins. And that's also how I get back to the main menu as well. Now, I've thought about drilling out holes in the front of the system, which will make sense. You know, I probably will do that eventually, but I just kind of wanted to get this up and running before I messed with it. So let me go ahead and add some coins, and I'll show you guys what I have to do with some B-roll footage as well. All right, so now we have some coins added into it. We got Saturday Night's Main Event, which is the main gameplay mode, or the Royal Rumble, which is a battle royale. So we'll go into the Saturday Night's Main Event. Gotta go with Hogan. I mean, it's freaking Hogan, man. I like to use Boss Man as my secondary character. Look at how beautiful this is. Just such a good game. Like, look at these graphics. Like, they still look great today. It's ridiculous. The presentation is just off the charts. Now, Wrestlefest is essentially, you know, it's a brawler. Like, it's not, you know, like No Mercy or anything like that. But I think gameplay-wise, it's probably better. I mean, it is better. It's better than any other wrestling game that came out, you know, during that time frame. You have individual moves. You have momentum. You can fight on the outside. There's different, you know, modes as well, such as the 2 different gameplay modes that we talked about, of course. Steel cage match as well. No, you're not getting them that. That's Demolition. I do wish they put Axe in this game instead of Crush. Obviously, Axe was, you know, not in very good health by the time this game came out. But basically, you try to beat down the guy and, you know, pin him. So we're going to go, oh. I don't want to choke him out because I think he would have tapped right there. I want to do the Hogan leg drop. Ooh, that was a nice backbreaker. No, sir. Uh-oh. Boom! That's ball game. That's ball game. Ain't no one getting up from that. Come on, boss man. Come on, boss man. That's what I'm talking about, boys and girls. So that's what made this game so cool, is you had the individual moves in there, the finishing moves, and that really just made the game stand out, and it just, you know, made it so awesome, and it still looks amazing, and you know, the cabinet is just so iconic. I absolutely love it. So I'll go ahead and just show you guys maybe one other game on here that I'm definitely very happy to have on here. Oh wait, we got him on the outside. We got him on the outside. Gotta do a little outside stuff. Get out there, Hogan. You dummy, get out there. Eat it, Slaughter! You betrayer. You betrayed everyone. You threw a fireball in my face. All right, let's check out another game though. I just love this game. I could play it all damn day. Another classic 2-button game is of course The Simpsons. So I had to put The Simpsons on here. This was one of the weird things about MAME though, is I downloaded a Simpsons ROM. First off, you have to get the 2-player ROM because of the fact that if you do 4-player, you can only select from 2 different characters because of the way it's built. And then the first 2-player ROM that I found, the sound cut off like halfway through the level, and it was just really weird. I was like, why is it doing that? That's just the weird thing about MAME, is there's lots of weird ROMs out there and everything. But I mean, I think this game will end up getting an Arcade1Up release, but now it's just kind of like, do I even really need it? You know, do I truly need it now that I have this on here? This, of course, was a game that came out. It was released on Xbox Live and PSN during the 360 and PS3 era, but then it got pulled because of licensing. So once again, like, some of these arcade games are just timeless games that you're never going to be able to play again. So things like this are very, very important because arcade machines, you know, cost a lot of money. It's hard to find an arcade that has all the games you want. So I think customizing an Arcade1Up cabinet is just a super, super smart decision because it gives you the ability to play these arcade games that, you know, would be lost to the sands of time, essentially. All right, so I'm going to wrap things up now. We're going to do some more shots of the arcade cabinet itself, and I'll give you my final thoughts. So to the surprise of absolutely no one, yes, this is my favorite Arcade1Up machine now. I absolutely love it. And I definitely think that if you're sort of a creative person, you're someone who could follow instructions pretty well, and you're not worried about soldering, stuff like that, I really feel like if you have an Arcade1Up cabinet that maybe just has some dust collecting on it, or you don't have really any sort of fond memories of it from growing up, you should definitely look at adding in a Raspberry Pi into your system. It's really not all that hard as long as you follow the instructions, and I think the end results speak for themselves. This is obviously a one-of-a-kind cabinet. I have seen a couple people, you know, post on Reddit that they've transformed one of their cabinets into a Wrestlefest, but I believe this is the first YouTube video that actually showcases this off, so I'm definitely very stoked to see that. But yeah, I mean, I play this thing all the time. I've played through Wrestlefest so many times, and it never gets boring. It's always so much fun, and that's what I really love about this system. So I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at my Wrestlefest Arcade1Up cabinet. I'm definitely very proud of it. Huge thank you to the following people for helping with this. Of course, Rax the Great and Russ for doing some of the labor, well, most of the labor with it. Of course, people like ETA Prime who make awesome instructional videos. Make sure you guys check out all 3 of those channels because they're awesome channels. And yeah, so let me know in the comments down below what you think of this. Is this something you would be interested in doing? And if so, what would you do with it? What sort of cabinet would you like to make that Arcade1Up hasn't made so far? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.